Hello, and welcome to a podcast about creating experimental art in trauma-informed and sustainable ways that support artists, our communities, and the organization as a whole. I'm your host, Molly, and you're listening to Any Other Anythings. In this season, we are focused on the latest project being produced by Graybox Collective. It is titled Positive Ruminations. So this is an event that will feature 4 new works, and each episode of this season of Any Other Anythings will feature conversations from the creative teams developing the new work. And we are really focusing on capturing the process and sharing out the things we find interesting along the way. Hope that you enjoy the season of Any Other Anythings. All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Any Other Anythings. So in this episode, you have finally, I guess, with Finger Painting for Grown-Ups, the full ensemble of Lauren and Ree talking about the process. And so since this was in many ways the first and only episode where we were able to fully talk and record about the process, it's a little longer than the previous ones, just so that we could really acknowledge the transitions and the transformation that has happened as part of this piece. Yeah, and I hope you enjoy it. So this is technically the first and last recording of the Finger Painting for Grown-Ups podcast episode for this round iteration of this project. So Ree and Lauren, maybe we can kind of recap the journey of this piece. I've referred to it in other episodes as this piece has gone through a lot of transformation and transition over the past 2 months, and here we are. So yeah, start with a summary, I guess.
Molly asked me to jump into the piece, and I said okay, and then we proceeded to create an entire piece in a really epic rehearsal where I think I made over 100 gestures is what it felt like on Post-it notes. And we wrote down, I was like, wow, I've never made this many gestures in my entire life. I had so many options. And then Molly magically crafted an itinerary of how we would put those together. And then Lauren can speak to her experience in the piece. But then we performed it. So I'll pause that and then send it to you.
You'll pause it. Hey. So 2 days after Ree was asked to join, I was asked to join the piece. I did get a heads up beforehand of hey, I'm asking Ree today, but you're up next if we need, and that's where we are now. I do have a longer history with finger painting. I was in the version 10 years ago, which is wild to say, pre-Graybox era Grayboxing. This is the pocket-sized version. So instead of a full-scale show with the script, we do just have that itinerary, interacting with the sound score in the space, which really is existing to help us through it, because again, we had a single rehearsal to score this all out into movement. But it is a lot of fun. It is a really cool experience, I think, from the inside, and I'm hoping the audience also kind of gets that vibe as well, with the directions happening and the movements, and at no point are we acknowledging each other. We're both just in our list of things to do and tasks and stuff to accomplish, whether they be fun or kind of hustle-bustle style movement.
Yeah, and I think the important thing to know is that the first time we ever met to try to put this piece together was to perform it for a showing. So we hadn't even rehearsed it, and then we were performing it. So that was a magical moment. But I think it's really brilliant to use the sound score and as cueing, but I think it also helps the audience read the piece really well. And I think it's really fun, and I love the nostalgia of the 80s tape recorder with the mic put next to the speaker to amplify it, old school style, and then having the audience member flip over the tape so that it's fully audience interactive. They are controlling the sound in many ways, and so they have choices they can make and kind of do their own busy culture hustle of how to engage with the piece. So I think that's very fun.
Mm-hmm. Also, every time I hear the word hustle in this between us, I'm thinking do.
Yeah, I think I think about gray box shows as always having some kind of like, I call it audience interaction light, where it's not like we're not pulling anyone up on stage or like asking you to be heavily involved. You're kind of passively involved. So it's engaging. And I do think, like Regis, as you said that, I was like, this is maybe a little more involved than like it seems passive, but then all of a sudden you are responsible for the entire soundscape, which means you're responsible for the entire show because all of the movements are connected into the soundscape. So no pressure to the audience member.
Medium. Audience medium. It's great.
Yeah. Yes. So okay, so thinking about like busy culture and the show, what are some of the like connections or what's really feeling busy culture-y on the inside?
The gestures definitely are a highlight of that busy culture. And like Rhea, I know you did a ton of work with that, and I just like slid in after your one rehearsal on your own and going through those, being directed like, move faster, change what you're doing, move faster, now do this, definitely has that layer of, okay, I'm at work and today I have to send this email and make these 2 phone calls and go to this meeting and do the, so I think there is that connection regardless of what your like status of employment is, or even whether you're at home, if you're, in that, like, okay, well, I have to sweep the floor, and I have to wipe off the kitchen counter, and I have to go and I have to send this on mail, and all of these little things that pile up in our brain is just really being narrated out loud throughout the piece.
I feel like I am embodying a lot of my thinking processes and how the thing was telling me what to do. That's like my meta brain being like, these are all the things you have to do. Okay, but I have to pause, redirect, go over here. This thing has to be done right now. Nope, you got to do this thing over here. Nope, you have to do this thing over here. And it like feels like my inner monologue. And I resonate very deeply in that. And I appreciate these different moments of contrast where we're doing the gestures and then like, at least I'm now kind of freezing and then doing just really simple gestures and then redirecting, and then I'm doing choreography and it's really flowy, and then I'm doing like more gestures, and then there's the kid dance where you just get to be totally free. And I just think the contrast between all of those things in this very like chaotic space feels like it how busy culture feels without being able to describe it in words quite so accurately.
Yeah, and that what that actually just makes me think about, right? Like the choreography is these free-flowing moments, and I feel like it's been a while since I've had like a corporate kind of job, but it's like you finally get into like your own little psychological flow with something, and that's when your boss is like, hey, I need you to do this something else, and you're like, I just was in the flow, I was in the moment, and busy culture like interjects itself in it.
And I really love the contrast between like the challenge of trying to be totally free and uninhibited as much as you can be, train it out of your body for the kid dance versus the choreographic dance. Because as a dancer who's trained in like specific styles and techniques, it is very challenging sometimes to just drop that and let it go and then pop back into the other parts. But I love gestures, so it brings me great joy to actually embody those.
Sorry, I know we can't see what's going on, but big yawn.
Big yawn. Big yawn energy.
So tired.
Yes, yes. So what are you hoping the audience experiences with this piece, or anything else that you'd like to share out for this one?
I hope the audience finds a little joy in, again, like that gesture set of like, oh yes, these are the billionaire gestures, or like those are the taxi and bus gestures. Finding those moments where they can relate to, oh yeah, I've seen that before, or that reminds me of blankety blankety blank. But also the joy of that cheekiness that the audio recording has in the soundscape. So even if you are feeling very balanced in your life culture, busy culture, and not overwhelmed, watch us get overwhelmed on your behalf and then play through it.
Yeah, I think I'm hoping it'll bring into perspective a reminder of work-life balance and maybe a little moment of like, wow, I'm really relating to the busy culture gestures. Wouldn't it be so fun to be free like the kid dancing and just take a moment for myself and run around and be free for just, just like a minute or two. It was actually a really long time to dance for. But I hope people take that away as like a little reminder that like you still have agency and control even in the midst of this expectation of like work and busy culture, to pause and
call back,
redirect, and embrace your inner child for just like a few minutes.
Yeah, I'm watching this piece, which all like hour and a half of rehearsal. I think one thing it makes me think about is it feels like a very simple piece on the surface and maybe in like even how it's been crafted, but once you start to really like dig into the layers of it or the subtleties of it and start to connect those dots to how we live our lives or how we are kind of forced to live our lives, I think that's where you start to see the depth. Because otherwise you're just basically playing Simon Says. But
I love it. I love the gamification of busy culture. There's something so devious in like being like, we take it so seriously.
We do.
But actually it's all a game. It's a game for someone. They don't know it's a game. We don't know that we're playing a game, but it's really a game.
Yeah, it's all made up.
It's all made up.
Just pretend.
It's imaginary, but we make it real.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Any other anythings?
My question for the audience is, when was the last time you swang on the swings? And my reminder for the audience is that you are so valuable and so special and so replaceable.
And we shall leave it there. Hey listener, thank you so much for taking the time and energy to check out another episode of Any Other Anythings. Greatly appreciate your presence. Be sure to check out the show notes for links to find out more about this podcast, the speakers, and Graybox Collective. You can also go to grayboxcollective.com/podcast for a full transcript of this episode. Thank you again for listening. Thank you again for being here. Greatly appreciate it. Take care of yourselves and each other.